Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, the deadly shooting of a mother by an ICE agent igniting outrage and questions about how this all unfolded. Chilling video shows the moments that agent opened fire during an immigration crackdown in Minnesota. Tonight, we go frame by frame. How did tensions flare, and how did it all take a fatal turn as the Trump administration calls the shooting self-defense and city and state officials call it unjustified?
Plus, tempers flare here in Minneapolis as ICE agents clash with protesters after the shooting death of a 37-year-old mother. I'm Whit Johnson with the latest.
Plus, in Portland, Oregon, 2 people shot by federal agents, according to local law enforcement, sparking questions of why by lawmakers and community leaders. President Trump signals U.S. control of Venezuela and its oil industry could last for years as Senate Republicans join Democrats like California's Adam Schiff to pass a war powers resolution blocking the president from taking any further military action in the country.
This is not what the American people bargained for. You campaigned on America first.
With more than 20 million struggling with skyrocketing health care costs, the House passes a bill to extend health care subsidies. But how long will it last, and when will Americans stop feeling the pinch? A possible medical emergency in space. NASA is now considering an early return for a sick astronaut on board the International Space Station. Man's best genius? Scientists say a rare subset of genius dogs are decoding human communication.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We begin with breaking news out of Portland, Oregon, where federal agents shot and injured 2 people. A press conference with Oregon's governor and Portland's mayor and local authorities finished just a short time ago. Let's take a listen.
Violence in our community is devastating. These are not statistics. These are human beings. Portland is not a training ground for militarized agents. When the administration talks about using full force, we are seeing what it means on our streets.
While the details of the incident remain limited, one thing is very clear. When a president endorses tearing families apart and attempts to govern through fear and hate rather than shared values, you foster an environment of lawlessness and recklessness. Trust is essential to maintaining community safety and the rule of law.
And here's what we know right now. The Department of Homeland Security says the shooting happened while Border Patrol agents were conducting a, quote, targeted stop on a car carrying 2 people allegedly affiliated with a gang. In a statement, DHS said that the driver, quote, weaponized his vehicle and attempted to run over the law enforcement agents. All of this comes as we track protests and growing backlash after that deadly ICE shooting in Minneapolis. These protests tonight unfolding in Minneapolis, Washington, D.C., and Dallas. Well, Alex Stone joins us now from Los Angeles. Alex, obviously things are still in the early stages in this investigation. The police chief says that he does not know what federal agents were involved in, but that Portland police officers were not involved. What do you make of what you've just heard?
Well, you heard there, Lindsay, local officials really trying to calm the situation. And as Elizabeth was saying a moment ago, and we've been talking about earlier, that Portland has a tendency to have a protest culture, and that they know that that is a threat for tonight as people hear about this and could potentially come out. You heard the police chief saying that they know the fear is real in the community and they're calling for peace and that they are looking for answers as well. At this point, it is a federal investigation. Local police say they don't know a whole lot. We've been talking to our sources, even on the federal side, as they're beginning to investigate. They say they don't know a lot, that they're trying to figure out it seems like at this point, no video that we have of this incident. It is going to be what those who were shot have to say and what the federal agents have to say, and to figure out what went on. But they're going to be looking for video. Was there surveillance video, any witness video, to try to lay out what went on?
And you heard the mayor ask federal agents to cease operations in his city until an investigation can be done. What we're hearing from federal authorities, what are we hearing at this time from federal authorities?
Well, they say that this was an investigation that they had been doing into Tren de Aragua, the TDA, the Venezuelan gang, and that they were doing a lawful investigation and that this vehicle was weaponized against them. But at this point, no indication. I mean, you heard the local officials saying that they want them out of their community. They want the federal agents to seize what they are doing. No indication tonight that they are going to do that. It seems on the federal side it is operation as normal, but we're waiting to hear more. We haven't heard much from the federal government. Maybe later tonight we will. Right now, very little is known.
All right, Alex Stone for us. Thank you so much, Alex. Now back to the growing protests and outrage after the deadly ICE shooting of a mother in Minneapolis. Videos of that encounter also disturbing. Those videos show 37-year-old Renee Good behind the wheel of her SUV, partially blocking an intersection. 2 federal agents try to open her door. You see the vehicle reverse and then drive forward. A third agent fires 3 times, killing the driver. That video sparking anger and nationwide protest. For a second day, demonstrators are taking to the streets across the country. In Minneapolis, there were clashes between protesters and law enforcement, during which officers doused people with pepper spray and fired tear gas. Meanwhile, the administration is doubling down, saying the agent was defending himself when he shot Good in her vehicle. But Minnesota's governor insists the driver was not a threat and accuses the feds of shutting the state out of the investigation, which the FBI is heading. Tonight, we're learning more about the woman who was killed and the agent behind the shooting. ABC's Whit Johnson reports from Minneapolis.
Tonight, tensions rising on the streets of Minneapolis and across the country after an ICE agent shot and killed Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother of 3, in her SUV as she began to drive forward. Protesters clashing with police, demanding ICE leave their city.
ICE, go home!
Disturbing videos show officers approach the SUV, one of them grabbing the door handle as the vehicle backs up. Then you can see the wheels turn to the right, and when the driver begins to pull forward, another agent fires, hitting her in the head. The vehicle seen speeding up and then crashing into cars parked on the side of the street. Robert Boyce, former chief of detectives for the NYPD, analyzing the videos frame by frame, giving his view.
I see an officer getting struck by a vehicle, unknown how hard he was struck, fire once, and then in quick succession move to his right and fire another 2 shots. Shots 2 and 3 are the issue here, and that officer will have to explain himself why he fired those 2 rounds.
Boyce also weighing in on that officer standing in front of the car.
You never get in front of the car, and you never get in back of the car either, for that matter. You stay on the sides as safely as you can make it, and that's the whole thing.
After the incident, ICE continuing their immigration crackdown. Chaotic scenes at nearby Roosevelt High School. All Minneapolis schools now closed for the rest of the week. Overnight, President Trump telling the New York Times about the driver, she behaved horribly, and then she ran him over. She didn't try to run him over. But when shown the video, the president also called it a terrible scene. In the White House briefing room today, Vice President J.D. Vance placed the blame on the driver.
I can believe that her death is a tragedy, while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making.
And went on to defend the officer this way.
She was trying to ram this guy with her car. He shot back. He defended himself.
The Minneapolis mayor calling the Trump administration's narrative garbage.
Good had reportedly just dropped off her 6-year-old son at school Wednesday and was driving home when she encountered ICE agents and was shot on this street. You can see the growing memorial behind me where her vehicle came to rest.
Ashley Horan lives 1 block away.
Many people were out in the neighborhood at that moment, and it could have been any of us.
Renee Good was born in Colorado Springs. The mother of 3 recently moved to Minneapolis from Kansas City.
A neighbor who is not a terrorist, not an extremist. That was just a mom who loved her kids, loved her spouse.
Her mother telling the Minnesota Star Tribune she's taken care of people all her life. She was loving, forgiving, and affectionate. She was an amazing human being. Law enforcement officials tell ABC News the agent who killed Good is a 10-year veteran of ICE's Special Response Team, agents deployed in high-profile tactical situations. Tonight, the FBI is leading the investigation. Minnesota's governor says state investigators have been blocked from taking part.
We have learned that the Trump administration has now denied the state that ability to participate in the investigation. And I just want to make this as clear as possible to everyone. Minnesota must be part of this investigation. It feels very, very difficult that we will get a fair outcome.
People echoing that sentiment. Whit Johnson joins us now. Whit, another day of protests today. What are officials doing to protect the community?
Yes, and Lindsay, you can see members of the community and activists have actually blocked off part of this street here where the shooting happened. Governor Walz says he has authorized the Minnesota National Guard to be staged and ready to help keep the peace if needed. Lindsay?
Whit Johnson for us in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Whit, thank you. And joining us now is the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan. Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for joining us. First, just want to get your reaction seeing those videos of what happened 24 hours later.
And I'd just like to start by just sharing my deepest condolences and sympathies to Renee Good's family. It's just horrific, and Minnesotans are completely heartbroken, angered by these images. And just to be clear, right, we all saw with our own eyeballs, right, from multiple angles, footage of this incident. And, I think what Donald Trump and Kristi Noem are trying to open up in this moment and trying to disparage, right, the memory of Miss Good is it's despicable.
And as you just said, we have seen those reactions from President Trump, Vice President Vance, among others, to yesterday's shooting. They claim that Renee Good tried to run the agent over. Vice President Vance even called it a tragedy of her own making. Your reaction to their claims?
I mean, my reaction is just, it's disgusting, right? And hearing J.D. Vance earlier today talking about the fact that ICE agents have absolute immunity, that's just, it's completely false. And so, this is up to the American people, right, to look at this footage, to see with their own eyes, what happened. And, the Trump administration is lying, and we need to call it out. ICE agents in our communities are making us so much less safe, and we have to speak out and tell the truth.
And what are your thoughts that your state's investigators have, at this point, at least been left out of the investigation into yesterday's shooting? We know that Governor Walz said earlier that the state must be involved, and it felt like it was going to be very difficult that there would be a fair outcome.
I mean, I echo, right, those comments from Governor Walz, right? Minnesotans and frankly, the American people deserve, right, a fair investigation to ensure transparency. And that includes making sure that state officials are engaged and involved, right? The FBI should absolutely be working with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. This is, what Minnesotans deserve, what Americans deserve, and frankly, what the family of, Renee Good deserves in this moment.
Protests have broken out since this happened, as you know. What's your message for those protesters or anyone else who's outraged about what happened?
Absolutely. I mean, I absolutely understand that people are angry and heartbroken. And, what we saw last night was thousands of people take to the street in vigil of remembrance and peacefully protesting. And so my message is that nonviolent resistance is one of the most important tools in our toolbox, and don't give Donald Trump a reason, right? We have to make sure that we are keeping each other safe, because what we've seen from these ICE agents is, they continue to move in ways that puts our entire community at risk. So conduct yourself appropriately, stay safe, continue to speak out, because what we're seeing is completely unacceptable, and we deserve to have our voices be heard. But please protect yourself and your fellow community members and do so safely.
Have you been in touch with Renee Good's family since this happened?
I have not. I went down to the site this morning and put down some flowers. There were a group of folks there, and just hugged complete strangers, because we're all leaning on each other right now as Minnesotans. We have endured incredible heartaches here in Minnesota, but we know how to take care of each other. And so that's what I saw on the ground. That's what I continue to see as people are protesting peacefully in the streets and really demanding transparency and justice for Renee Good. And it is time for ICE to get out of Minnesota, to stay open from our schools, and to just leave us alone. This is enough.
Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan, we thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I want to take a live look now in Washington, D.C., just one of several protests across the country in reaction to the death of that mother and wife by the ICE officer in Minneapolis yesterday. We will continue to monitor them throughout the night and days ahead. And tonight, President Trump signals U.S. control of Venezuela's oil industry could last for years, saying only time will tell. Senate Republicans joined Democrats to pass a war powers resolution blocking the president from taking any further military action in the country. Our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, reports from the White House.
Tonight, President Trump telling the New York Times that the U.S. will be running Venezuela for, quote, much longer than a year.
How long do you think you'll be running Venezuela?
Only time will tell.
Like 3 months, 6 months, a year, longer?
I would say much longer than that.
Much longer.
And we have to rebuild. You have to rebuild the country, and we will rebuild it in a very profitable way. We're going to be using oil, and we're going to be taking oil.
The president has not said what gives him authority to run another country and has yet to outline his plan for governing Venezuela. He also is not ruling out putting American troops on the ground.
What would trigger a decision to send ground troops into Venezuela?
I wouldn't want to tell you that because, you know, I can't give up information like that to a reporter.
And on Capitol Hill, the Senate took a big step toward blocking President Trump from taking further military action without Senate approval. 5 Republicans joining the Democrats.
This resolution is limited to Venezuela, and it says that for future armed hostilities, there needs to be congressional authorization.
Tonight, the New York Times asked the president whether there were any limits to his global powers.
Do you see any checks on your power on the world stage? Is there anything that could stop you if you wanted to?
Yeah, there's one thing, my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop. And
so not Congress or the Constitution. Rachel Scott joins us now from the White House. Rachel, the Venezuelan Constitution requires that elections are to be held within 30 days. Has President Trump weighed in on when these might happen?
Yes, the president and the White House has been asked repeatedly about whether or not the White House supports Venezuela holding elections within that time frame as outlined in the country's constitution. Now, the president and the White House have not committed to supporting that just yet. What they have told us is right now they believe that the current Venezuelan regime is giving them exactly what they want. They have this tentative deal in place when it comes to oil, and the president made very clear in that New York Times interview that he believes the United States is going to be running Venezuela for possibly years, Linsey.
Rachel Scott from the White House for us. Thanks so much, Rachel. To Ukraine now, while there's been some satisfaction seeing Maduro taken out of power as Russia is a close ally of Venezuela, there's also been concern as there's a fear that this undermines Ukraine's argument that Russia's invasion is a clear violation of international law. For more now, we're joined by Ukraine's ambassador to the U.S., Olga Stefanishina. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Ambassador. Of course, we've seen reports warning of a massive onslaught overnight in Ukraine. Are you concerned that America's decision to take Maduro out of power may embolden Putin in Ukraine?
Well, absolutely. These are not topics which really connected to the infield situation in Ukraine. And basically, by the current ongoing missile attack we have throughout the whole territory of Ukraine, just as we speak, we see that Putin were not that much distracted by situation in Venezuela, although he's trying to further put pressure on Ukrainians, thinking that he could demoralize the population, but he gets just the opposite effect of it.
During Trump's first term, Fiona Hill testified that Russia had informally offered to end its support for Venezuela in exchange for U.S. acceptance of Russian dominance in Ukraine. What, if anything, have you heard from the U.S. government since the Venezuelan raid over the weekend?
Well, I think the world has severely moved to the more advanced reality that Russia has in their mind. They are always speculating and trying to manipulate the reality and the facts. So I would not really go into putting a lot of connections to the fact. But basically, what's happening in Ukraine is the massive genocide of population, the war crimes you cannot really imagine. So it's not just a military operation or anything even close to just a military act.
The war is now approaching its 4th year. What progress, if any, is being made toward a peace deal in concert with the Trump administration and their envoys?
Well, basically, I think we should not forget the very fact that we are speaking now about ending the war. And just recently, you saw that the leaders of Europe, together with the American delegation, were joining together with President Zelensky in Paris to not only secure the peace deal, but also to make sure that this deal is not violated. This is exactly what we hear from President Trump when he says that he's not only wanting to end the war, but he wants to secure his legacy by not giving any incentive to Russia to even consider any other aggression of that.
Do you have a sense that we could see peace this year?
Ukraine wakes up every morning willing to have peace. So we are going to seek for any option to end the war. And of course, on the 4th year after the massive aggression which has been started against our people, we will explore every option to end that. And I'm sure that with all of the efforts put in together, with the American leadership working round the clock on that, this is absolutely possible. But it could happen even faster if Russia is hearing the language they understand, the language of strength, power, and pressure.
And what do you make of President Trump's role at this point?
Well, he is a president of the United States who have made a personal commitment to take effort to end the war in Ukraine. He has been declaring since even before he has taken officially the post of the president of the United States. And I think whatever we can do to back up this promise or this commitment should be done, whether it should be done by Ukraine or it should be done by anybody around the world who's willing to restore peace in Europe. And of course, this is the message the Russian Federation as the aggressor should hear. And I think it's been a long time since the aggressor got to know the President of the United States. And we really hope that his determination will give us the chance to end the war and will give no signal to the aggressor, to the Russians, that there is an impunity or a waiver at some point on that.
What's the personal toll been for you of this war, as we mentioned earlier, now going on 4 years?
Well, as a member of National Security and Defense Council, I have spent all these days before I landed as the ambassador in Ukraine with my family. So whatever you're hearing from me on the war, it's not just the words or bullets, it's the experience and knowledge. Unfortunately, I experienced as the member of the government, but also as a human being, as a mother, as a partner, as a daughter, and when we are speaking for ending the war, we're speaking on behalf of our families, of everybody who's holding the front, who's keeping the lights on, who's staying in Ukraine and keep economy running. So we're not talking about one man or anybody in power. We are speaking about entire nation, which will never give up its independence.
Ambassador Olga Stefanishina, we thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
For more now on Venezuela and the U.S. role in conflicts overseas, we're joined by California Democratic Senator Adam Schiff. Senator, thank you so much for joining us. Certainly a lot going on. Let's start with the War Powers Resolution. You're, of course, one of the co-sponsors of this legislation and been trying for several months, in fact, to get a vote on this. Today, the Senate narrowly agreed to bring a resolution to the floor requiring that the Trump administration get congressional authorization for military operations in Venezuela. Were you expecting this to pass after it failed last month?
I was expecting it to be a close vote, but I think, frankly, what may have pushed it forward were the president's own words. the fact that not only has this morphed from a supposed operation about stopping drug-running ships, but now it's all about the oil, and not just about the oil, but the president says that we may be taking on leadership, the running of another country for years. And I think that open-ended, indefinite commitment was a lot more than Republicans were bargaining for. So I think we had certainly a bigger margin than what I was expecting. I thought it would be very close. But now we're going to have a real fulsome debate in the Senate. If they believe that we ought to risk the lives of U.S. service members to secure oil resources in another country and try to rebuild that country, let them make the case for it. Let them come to Congress and request that authority.
Trump immediately attacked the 5 Republicans who voted with Democrats today. What do you make of this? Does this seem to signal a potential break with the president? Because typically we have seen these votes really be consistent along party lines.
Well, it is already a break of sorts among these Republicans, and I think the concern is growing. Now, the president and his vehement reaction to this, the threat against these lawmakers that essentially they'll be primaried if they vote against him or having voted against him, it shows how significant the president believes that this departure is. He's saying this law is unconstitutional. That is the War Powers Act. It's not. He's saying he will veto the bill if it passes in the House as well as the Senate. That he may do, but nevertheless, you can see how significant he believes this is to have members of his own party voting to say, no, this is not what the American people bargained for. You campaigned on America first. You campaigned again against regime change wars and nation building exercises. And now we're going to embark on another. And for what purpose? For oil. So I think it's very significant.
Let's talk about the Affordable Care Act. The House today approved a 3-year extension of those subsidies, and there's word of a possible compromise forming in the Senate. What's the latest? Will Americans who've seen their health care bills already start to spike be getting any relief?
Well, I certainly hope so. I hope that passage in the House creates a certain momentum in the Senate. I'm skeptical that Senate Republicans are really ready, willing to do this. We haven't seen any indication of that from Majority Leader Thune. I will be surprised if they're willing to take up a clean extension. They should, but we'll see. Frankly, these conversations, though, should have taken place last year. It should have taken place before healthcare costs exploded. They knew this was going to happen, so this is very late. Nevertheless, I hope we can take up that clean extension and pass it in the Senate.
And lastly, your reaction to that fatal shooting of a mother in Minneapolis yesterday by an ICE officer.
You know, it's heartbreaking. It's horrifying and it's heartbreaking. This mother who dropped off her kid at school, not part of any protest, ends up being in the wrong place at the wrong time and gets shot and killed by an ICE agent. Now, I've looked at the video. This requires obviously a full investigation. But it certainly seems to me that the use of force there was not justified. She was turning away from the officer. She, in fact, earlier was waving traffic through, seemed very compliant. And nevertheless, we now have another casualty in the president's aggressive, deliberately provocative deployment of ICE forces around the country. This is not making communities safer. It is just aggravating the situation and creating unnecessary loss of life.
California Democratic Senator Adam Schiff, we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up, we have continuing coverage of the ICE-related shooting in Minneapolis. A former police chief reviews the videos of the deadly incident frame by frame, and an emergency in space, why NASA is bringing back crew members on board the International Space Station. Welcome back. We are following breaking news. ABC News has learned that 2 people have been shot in Portland by federal agents. It happened this afternoon. That's according to local police. The FBI is now investigating and say that Customs and Border Patrol agents were involved. I want to bring in Portland-based Congresswoman Representative Janelle Bynum. Thank you so much, Congresswoman, for joining us. What are you being told at this moment that may have happened?
Well, I've been told it's a husband and wife involved. The husband was shot in the arm. The wife was shot in the chest. We have been calling for months now for President Trump to take his goons away from here. We know that we've been targeted, and we have a history in Portland of trying to de-escalate encounters like this between law enforcement and the citizenry. We've worked really hard to get there, and this is not good.
Any idea of the condition of that couple?
What I've understood is that it will be a rocky road for recovery. There was an ambulance transport from one parking lot to the hospital, and it will be a long road for recovery, is what I understood one of the on-site people to say.
And you said that you have wanted that law enforcement to leave your area there in Portland. Give us a sense of what the day-to-day has been like for the last few months.
Well, you know, we in Portland and in Oregon in general have worked really hard to try and make sure that our law enforcement encounters are de-escalated, that everyone makes it home alive or into custody alive, and that law enforcement officers can do their jobs and keep our streets safe. What we are experiencing is not law enforcement. It's goons being unleashed to terrorize the community. And I think that is the difference in what we're seeing. We also know that there have been reports that people have been impersonating utility workers to try to gain access to people's houses illegally, and that has spread terror through the community. And we also know that the business community has said over and over again, give us a good, immigration policy and make sure that people can live comfortably with their families. But what is happening now is unacceptable.
While details, of course, are still emerging, this, of course, comes after yesterday's deadly ICE shooting in Minnesota. What message do you have amid the heightened tensions, not just to citizens in Oregon, but perhaps across the country?
Well, I just had an intern start yesterday. She was a high school intern in our office, and the toughest thing for her was answering all the phone calls from concerned citizens about what is happening across the country. People are upset, people are scared, people are tired, people are crying. People are really, really having a hard time with this. And I think that is emblematic of how the entire country feels, regardless of how you feel about immigration itself. This is terror, and this is state-sanctioned terror, and it has to stop.
What is your message, Congresswoman, to the Trump administration?
Get your goons out of here and get to stepping. It's very simple. If you can't control your people, that is a sign that you haven't done the work that you need to do. And working with Congress is one of them. Setting out rules for engagement, coming up with a strong immigration policy that protects our borders, protects our businesses, protects our children, protects our families, and making sure that we have something that we can stand on. What we have right now is trash, it's bull.
Congresswoman Janelle Bynum, we thank you so much, and our condolences to the entire community there in Portland. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Prime. Here's a look at the stories making headlines right now. Tensions are rising on the streets of Minneapolis and across the country after an ICE agent shot and killed 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good inside her car. The disturbing video of the deadly encounter is sparking anger and nationwide protests. The administration is doubling down, though, saying the agent was defending himself, but Minnesota officials say the shooting was not justified. And President Trump tells the New York Times that the U.S. will be running Venezuela for, quote, much longer than a year. But the president has yet to provide any details about his plan to govern the country. He's also not ruling out the idea of boots on the ground. And on Capitol Hill, Senate Republicans are joining Democrats to pass a war power solution, blocking the president from taking any further military action in Venezuela. And today, the White House announced that plans for President Trump's White House expansion may continue, this time in the West Wing. The architect now says the White House is considering adding another story onto the West Wing to restore symmetry once the ballroom is finished. And coming up, the House passed a bill to extend Obamacare subsidies. Now it heads to the Senate. How this could impact health insurance benefits for more than 20 million Americans. Tens of thousands of car seats are being recalled. Which state is banning cell phones in schools? And triplets hope to make the Olympic ski team for Jamaica. These stories and much more in tonight's rundown. Baby product company Evenflo has voluntarily recalled more than 74,000 car seats where the adjustable recline may shift while the seat is in a rear-facing position. The voluntary recall impacts certain models of all-for-one child seats manufactured between January 2022 and June of 2024 and sold in the U.S. and Canada. The company says they will notify affected customers and replace the seats free of charge. In one of his last public acts before leaving office, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy signed a bell-to-bell school cell phone ban into law. The bill restricts students from using smartphones and other devices with internet access during the school day. Phones are banned throughout the school day in 19 of the states and the District of Columbia, although Georgia and Florida imposed the same bell-to-bell bans only from kindergarten through 8th grade. The policy in New Jersey goes into effect later this year. Scientists have discovered that a rare subset of so-called genius dogs has also mastered the art of eavesdropping to decode human communication. Scientists studied a group of 10 dogs in 2 experiments to test how well they learn new labels for their toys. In the first experiment, owners spent time directly introducing 2 new toys to their dogs. After exposing the dogs to the toys, the owners transitioned to talking about the toys with another person without involving the dogs. 7 of the dogs tested in that experiment successfully learned the names of their new toys in just 8 minutes. Researchers suggest these dogs can learn as well as a 1.5-year-old toddler, but more research is needed to expand humans' understanding of our canine friends. You may remember him from the MTV reality show The Hills, and now Spencer Pratt is jumping into the race for mayor of Los Angeles. Pratt is running as a Republican and announced his candidacy this week, 1 year after the devastating California wildfires that destroyed his home. Pratt previously railed against state and city leadership for the fires that killed dozens and destroyed thousands of homes. At his campaign kickoff, he said he is running for office to expose the system. The mayoral primaries begin in June in Los Angeles. The 83rd annual Golden Globes are almost here. Actors who are nominated for Golden Globes this year include Jacob Elordi, Seth Rogen, Amanda Seyfried, Cynthia Erivo, and Ariana Grande. The ceremony will take place at the Beverly Hilton in Beverly Hills, January 11th. Meanwhile, the Oscars announced that 317 feature films are eligible for the famous gold statuette this year, with 201 feature films eligible to win Best Picture. Nominees will be announced later this month. And 3 triplets are racing toward their dreams of competing together at the upcoming Winter Olympics in Milan. Helena, Henry, and Henia Rivers were born just minutes apart in Brooklyn, New York, and are racing under the flag of their mother's home country of Jamaica. So far, Henry has qualified for the slalom events at the Milan Games, and his 2 sisters are close to clinching their spots as well. The deadline to qualify for the Games is later this month, but the 18-year-old siblings are already eyeing the 2030 Games in France and the 2034 Olympiad in Utah. Tonight, a possible medical emergency in space. NASA is considering an early return for a sick astronaut on board the International Space Station. ABC's Will Reeve has that story.
In an unprecedented move tonight, NASA announcing it will bring 4 astronauts home early from their mission at the International Space Station because of a medical issue with one of the crew.
Yesterday, a single crew member on board the station experienced a medical situation and is now stable. I've come to the decision that it's in the best interest of our astronauts to return Crew 11 ahead of their planned departure.
The crew was due to return next month, but NASA says they'll return to Earth within days. The astronaut with the medical concern has not been identified due to medical privacy.
This is not an emergent evacuation. We're not immediately disembarking and getting the astronaut down. But it leaves that lingering risk and lingering question as to what that diagnosis is. And that means there's some lingering risk for that astronaut on board.
The extraordinary move coming after Mission Control postponed a spacewalk scheduled for this morning.
And here they come. Crew 11.
The 4-person crew, including 2 Americans, launched into space on the SpaceX Dragon in August, joining other astronauts at the space station.
Hello and welcome to the International Space Station.
This will be the first medical evacuation from the space station in its 25-year history as a lab for astronauts.
The crew will return on a SpaceX Dragon, and that astronaut will be taken for medical evaluation immediately, Lindsay.
And we will continue to follow those protests across the country in the wake of that deadly ICE shooting. Thanks so much for streaming with us.